Welcome back to Vintage Super League. I'm Eric Froelich, and I am joined by Stephen Menendian, who just had a pretty nice win. That was a fun match. What was your takeaway from that one?
I was pretty flustered the whole time. I I don't know what was going on. He resolved Time Twister, and I took probably some routes that took a lot longer to win than usual, but I sideboarded out most of my win conditions. So I was afraid.
I commented on that about 100 times. That this is something you're known for. You like to board down to as few win conditions as humanly possible.
Yeah, Who likes win conditions? Really, they just get in the way. They're pesky.
You like to play with your prey.
Yeah, and I mean, I was afraid of a scenario where the Pyromancer and/or Mentor would be too far low in my deck to win. So I committed to the ramping the J-Spring Prodigy, which I don't, I could have walked, digged, done a lot of other things, and actually we saw where the Mentor was. I would have been able to win with Mentor, but I think the key turning point for me was the dig. Like I could take Scroll and Force, or I could strip and Stony, and
yeah, you were gonna win the game no matter what you did though. Okay. I thought it was the thing was his Time Twister was really bad for him. He hit 3 artifacts, 3 lands, and a bargain. So he couldn't cast the.
He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything after.
Right. He couldn't cast it, and then, all you needed was one counter. He couldn't really do anything. He had one action spell, and just never really drew into anything that could improve that situation. And then you just kept destroying his mana. And then Stony Silence came down, which once you made that play, the game was pretty close to over. I mean, his only out was, of course, top decking a bunch of relevant spells in a row to basically force you to use your counters and then be able to resolve the bargain. But even if all of that happened, it's still a tough spot just because, there's still a Stony Silence in play. He's got to be able to resolve, the Chain of Vapor probably, and there's multiple Planeswalkers. So, it just got harder and harder. The game felt almost completely over as soon as Time Twister resolved with those two hands, and it never got better. It got worse turn after turn for Randy, to the point that, I don't even remember what me and Rachel were talking about, but it probably had very little to do with the game at that point for the next 20 minutes because there just wasn't a sequence. His hand was just too bad.
Well, I could have probably activated Dax Emblem a lot earlier and started Pyroblasting his stuff, and then flashback Pyroblast to eat up his mana base. It's such an unusual route to victory that I almost never play that route, especially with both emblems in play. So it was weird, and I wasn't used to that game, and so I wasn't 100% sure what the heck I was doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely. I'm not sure it was correct to be pyroblasting lands to steal them, but it was cooler, and the fact that you couldn't lose no matter what, gave a few style points. I mean, you were literally casting a spell that was 1 red that the text on the card said nothing. It's it does nothing, but you got to mill 5 and steal a land. It's just it's just such a weird game. And so we were trying to figure out if anyone had ever won with the Baby Jace Elm before, because Rachel's the only one I can remember who to ever have one. And she ended up losing a close game with it, I think to me, actually. And Rich said in the chat that he didn't think anyone had ever won with the album before, so that was cool to see. Yeah, in VSL, of course.
Make it entertaining, for the folks at home, although it probably was also painful to watch how long that game took. So
yeah, anyway. I mean, as long as cool things are happening, I don't think people mind the extra few minutes. It's not really a big deal. But, all right, so coming up next, we're going to have Rachel against Randy. They're playing almost the same matchup. So she's got a few less Stony Silences, but it sounds like the players are ready. So we'll take you down there. Welcome back to Vintage Super League. Rachel is playing Jeskai Mentor. Randy is playing Spice. He is playing the Spice Girls itself. Bargain Storm. Hasn't gone perfectly yet. He's gotten a win in both of his matches, but hasn't been able to close it out. Definitely some unfortunate things have happened so far. So we'll see. I mean, he won the die roll, which is great. He gets to lead on Duress. He's got Defense Grid for next turn, but he has no mana artifact, so he can't cast this wheel, and he's nowhere near Outcome or Mind's Desire being good. So I don't know. That's going to be a tough one. Rachel, on the other hand, hand is pretty solid. She's got the answer for defense grid. She's leaving up Pyroblast rather than casting the Ponder. Tendrils is probably one of the very worst draws in the deck.
Yeah, it's not something you really ever want to see in your hand, except in the game like we just had, which is what I was most concerned about, is that he would have a Tendrils.
Yeah, there was the one interesting decision point was when you force a Will the Dark Ritual.
I was afraid he might have drawn the Tendrils. I probed him, I think, 2 turns before.
Yeah, I'd also said if he drew Mind's Desire, he would have been able to cast it for 7.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the graveyard. It might, like, any of those cards could have already been milled, but yeah, any Storm card he would have been able to cast 7 spells that turn.
Oh God.
But he didn't have them. I mean, he happened to just have the bargain. So, all right. So, Rachel gets Fragmentize the defense grid. She gets to cast her Ponder. She's got multiple Pyroblasts up. She's found the Brainstorm, although she's cracking the fetch now with a Brainstorm in hand. That's weird. I guess she already knows she wants to. I think that was just a mistake.
Yeah, she's got double Pyroblast though, which is pretty good against the paradoxical show and tell deck.
Yes.
Both of his some of his marquee cards. And she's got Strip Mine.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was playing cards like Show and Tell or even Outcome or Leon. So I only boarded in 2 copies of Pyroblast because I never found it to be outstanding against Storm in general, and I figured he was playing a lot more bargains than usual, which, you know, Pyroblast doesn't do anything. He's got a bunch of defense grids.
Well, then usual.
Might have been a mistake.
Yeah, then usual. I mean, you were only permitted 1 for the last 15 years until you know.
That's the only Storm deck I've ever played in Vintage, so it's all I know. And that deck played like 4 Duress, Cabal Therapies, but also had 4 Probes.
Right. You won.
So I guess I just don't know.
You won the very first Vintage Challenge with that deck.
That was fun. I like when I win.
Yeah, this is a kind of sad situation. You didn't know this, but Randy came very close in game 1 against you to playing Show and Tell and putting a bargain into play, allowing you to put in Notion Thief. He was very close to doing it.
I feel like I want to be tilted, but I won the match, so I guess I just accepted it.
And he had no idea. Yeah, he had no idea what you were doing. We were like...
I actually, for like a second after I fetched on turn 2, because I had like another fetch land, I believe, I didn't have to go get an Underground Sea. And so I did think about whether I wanted to try to disguise the fact that I was Grixis, but only after I'd made the play. I'm like, there's probably a good chance I should have thought about this and maybe just gotten a second Volcanic.
Yeah.
But I didn't really think about all the reasons why that would have been good, just to like disguise more what deck I was playing than anything else. Although if I had done that, there's, I guess, a better chance he would have played the Show and Tell. And just thought I was straight blue-red with nothing to punish him.
Right. I mean, I think it was actually a pretty close decision. He really wants to win with Bargain that turn, and he can play Bargain with 1 mana up or Bargain with 4 mana up. Yeah, if he didn't have the extra mana, he probably would have Show and Tell the Bargain, and then you would have easily won.
Right, but if I just got the Volcanic, that might have worked out for me just because... there's just, what can blue-red do? There's just nothing that punishes.
Yeah. No.
Unless somehow I was on a Legacy Sneak and Show deck. And just put a Gristful Brand in.
So it seems like Rachel's playing a very similar game to the game we just played. She's got double Pyroblast, Force, Misstep, and Blue Spell to pitch, as well as Planeswalker and the small... But she does have the advantage of the...
the real thing that's going on here is Randy drew 0 artifacts and Discipline lands.
Yeah. He does have Ritual, but that's not going to get very far.
No, not against the card Forcible.
Oh, God. Every time I see Rachel with Library in her hand, I have an automatic fear response. It's not even rational. It's just...
You're saying in commentary, I think that Rachel might have drawn the most cards with Library of anyone in Vintage Super League
ever.
Lifetime. Yeah. Lifetime, despite having played, I think she's played 72 fewer matches than me. But I think she's got me beat, and I play Library in like all of my decks.
Yeah, I guess VSL. One of the things that we were talking about during your match, Eric, was that I mentioned that on Twitter you would observed that you had the record number of losses. I said, while that may be true, he almost certainly has the most number of wins, playoffs wins, and every other, Brett Favre metric you could probably throw out.
Most interceptions by a lot.
Yeah.
Most touchdowns, most interceptions. Yeah. Well, yeah, the number of matches I have played versus everyone else. I was telling Randy, but before we started, like I have played almost 40 more matches than Randy, and we've both played every season.
Yeah.
That's insane. And
That's
Randy's won a
absurd.
season and made the playoffs in another season.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just, the number of matches played is just kind of staggering.
Yeah, I think the matches played thing gets a little bit tricky because we've had like these ridiculous best of
Right. No, of course that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it also is just like so tiring. He's played so many matches.
Yeah, I don't feel bad for you. You've won 2 of these seasons more
Well,
than anyone else.
To be fair, a lot of the reason that is, and why, you've won a season, but in that season, I played twice as many playoff matches than you, in the season that I won, I played more than twice as many playoff matches than you because I've had to come up from being 4th place every time,
Right.
And you were just the top seed, so you just sat and waited for the finals, and so you got to play your 4 matches. You beat LSV 3-1, and I'm playing best of 5, best of 5, best of 5. So it added up ridiculously. But yeah, you're actually pretty high up there in total matches played. You're actually also above Randy, despite missing a season.
And the coup de grace.
Yeah, the stats are definitely interesting.
Yeah, we've reached the level of VSL where you can actually go back and analyze all the stats and look at all the plays. It's at one point I recall someone calculated the number of turn 1 plays we had, and it was something like 1 every 50 games was the stat.
Right. Yeah, it happened like twice in the first 100 or something.
Yeah, like to see that stat recalculated.
Yeah, I went through it during season 4 and started figuring out the win percentage on play draw, but that's a lot of work.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, coming into this season, VSL has played 360 matches already, which is kind of cool. A lot of vintage Magic being played.
Nice round number too. All right, so Randy is looking for another way to slip a win.
Should he have mulliganed that hand, do you think? That hand had turn 1 duress, turn 2 defense grid.
Yeah,
but it was also pretty empty.
I think you got to keep it.
Yeah.
I think just because you've got defense grid and at least a little bit of mana and enough business. One of the mysterious things that I think I was in my match against Randy, I had a dead Swords to Plowshares in my opening hand that was pretty awful, but I had to have it as a hedge against the Tinker. It's like a mystical.
Did you have to have it? Okay.
Well, I mean,
you
I
have Dax Hayden.
Yeah, I have 2 Dax, but if there are scenarios where I can merchant for mystical for swords and whatever into it if I can't Dax. But in any case, and I can also I can plus a tiny Jace to give Blightsteel -2 to survive a turn. But I do think you need at least one way to remove a resolve Blightsteel or play Grafdigger's Cage. If you bring in the Grafdigger's Cages, then I think it's probably a fair trade-off. But
yeah.
But it's interesting that he's not budging on this Tinker, and it doesn't seem like he. I mean, obviously he didn't see it against me, and he's not inclined to bring it in against her. So, despite the fact that neither one of us brought in Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah, I
think it would. I think it's worth having. I mean, you can tinker for if you have excess mana, you can tinker for a defense grid, or even a second defense grid, and I don't know. I think it's worth it.
I don't know. It was not a card that I really boarded in much outside of things that I'd be much more inclined to board it in against you than I would against Rachel, just because you had 3 Stony Silences, and it does give you a nice win condition against Stony Silence.
Exactly.
But she's only got 1 Stony Silence, and she's got, there's also, again, Jace the Mind Sculptor sitting in hand. There's Dak Vadens. There's, definitely answers to it. So, I don't know. Randy's got another one of those hands that.
Yeah. Really
the thing is, you kind of have to keep this, and it's so bad.
So bad.
I don't actually know if you can keep it.
Yeah.
Maybe you just have to hope for a turn 1 draw 7 type hand.
It looks like he kept it and had a land on top, which is fortunate for him.
Is it? Like, is turn 2 defense grid do anything? He has no spell he can cast. There's nothing in his hand that does anything. And I didn't look at Rachel's sideboard or see how much artifact removal she brought in, but she has access to plenty of it. I mean, there were Fragmentize's main. I mean, you had By Forces. Like, I'm sure she's got plenty of artifact removal spells that sitting on a defense grid for 6 turns is not going to win the game. Like, you know, she's going to find an answer for it, and she's going to draw out of this. And Randy just can't really draw out of it. Like, he needs to find Ancestral or a card similar. I don't know. This hand just doesn't win. No, I know. It sucks. Yeah, it's the downside of playing decks that have to play cards like Yawgmoth's Bargain. When you can't cast them, they're so bad.
Well, that's why he does have Show and Tell. So you get the 3 mana.
You take Force of Will, and then she drew Force of Will on turn 1.
That's about par for the course, right? Rachel. Yeah, God. And she has misstep.
Right. I mean, this defense grid's going to come down, so that misstep's actually bad. Although I guess she can just pitch it to Force Will if she wants to. I don't think she cares about the defense grid.
It's interesting. I'm not sure whether she will or not. If she does force, she gets a little bit closer to being able to dig, whatever that's worth.
Right. Like, she'll have obviously the Force of Will and the misstep look like bad cards in hand against the defense grid, but she should have enough artifact destruction in her deck that the defense grid is unlikely to stick around for a long time. It's tough because you let defense grid resolve and then you die next turn. You feel pretty stupid.
Exactly. I'm surprised she kept the Jace because the Jace isn't really doing anything for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I bored out Jace in this matchup. I think it's just
no, I agree.
So this will get misstepped. Dak will come down.
Wait, what did she pitch to the Force?
Dig through there.
Oh, the dig. Oh yeah, I would have kept the dig and pitched the Jace because she's now on dig. Yeah. Dig. Interesting.
I would pitch the Jace again.
Yeah, but I mean, if you've committed to Jace, it's like, you know.
Have you read Paulo Vitor's article on Channel Fireball? Just because you've made one mistake doesn't mean you should make two. All right, there it goes. Jace is down. It was a good article for anyone who's interested in improving in Magic. It's one of those things that I know a lot of people struggle with. I know Finkel responded on Twitter to say that this is something he's victim to, but sometimes you make a mistake that people don't necessarily have to know about. Like, let's say you didn't play your land before playing your spell, and they cast Force Spike Sensor, Mana Tithe, whatever it might be, and your card gets countered. A lot of people will then hold the land and not play it to not feel like you look too stupid by doing that. But if it's right to play the land, you should just play the land. Like one mistake that only you know about is worse than 2 mistakes that now everyone knows about.
Yeah, doubling down on a mistake is worse than just trying to correct the error, even if you're behind.
The principle behind it is that people don't want to look stupid. Like, the thing is, if you don't play the land, no one knows that you made them. Well, it's not even a psychological thing. It's a very conscious thing that no one everyone will know you have this land and you didn't play it. Whereas if you just hold it and pass, people will just be like, oh, well, you got screwed by Force Spike. But
well, there's a related concept in Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, called the sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. The article is about sunk cost fallacy. So yeah, exact same concept.
That comes from that comes from social psychology, but it's not always conscious.
No. I mean, a lot of the options are not talking about things that are conscious, but these are actively conscious things that you could do to improve your Magic game.
Right.
And so, like, the things that are subconscious that cause you to make mistakes, there's only so much you can do, unfortunately. As Rachel just gets further and further ahead.
Yeah, she's at that point where you have to pitch more good cards to Dak. I mean, she has literally double Flusterstorm and Pyroblast.
Well,
what would you pitch? I would
probably go right back to Jace.
Bye, Jace.
Jace and Mox. The other cards are just so good. I don't know.
Yeah, but she needs eventually a card that can pull her, ahead, not just keep parity. And the 2 cards.
What does eventually mean?
Fair enough.
Like how long is it going to be before you have your 6 mana in play that you actually want to cast this Jace? Are you going to ever cast it with 4 mana? Like, it seems kind of silly.
Yeah, I probably would have kept the Pyroblast and ditched the Jace, especially since you're close to embleming him and taking another. No, I don't think she should emblem and Pyroblast one of his land. If he had 2 lands, I would advise it. But
All right, not even exactly sure if I'm Randy and I could stack my deck what I'd want to draw here. Maybe defense grid. And it's not like his hand is not that terrible. I mean, the Ritual and the Agnes are great finds, but
honestly, I don't think that Remora has any value here. I would dump the Remora.
I agree. All it is going to tap your lands for 2 turns. He's not casting spells anyway.
Yeah. Wait, Randy needs a gush.
Did you have Flusterstorms in your deck?
0.
Okay. Because, yeah, I guess that kind of put you in the tougher spot of not really having an answer to the Storm cards if you look at it yourself.
I wasn't sure the best way to bottleneck him, and I didn't have a lot of win conditions, so I just went for the mana mana plan. It was very awkward because I had taken all of his, a lot of his mana. I had an abundance of Mox myself. I don't know. Like you said, it probably would have worked out either way, but when you're in that spot, it feels a lot more tenuous than it probably is.
Well, yeah, you're playing against a deck that has 7 cards in hand. It's never going to feel great.
Exactly.
I mean, you know what the Storm deck is capable of. Like, it's possible for him to just play, 3 different bust counter spells that are going to beat you in 1 turn with, relative ease.
So just an observation, this particular scenario, it highlights the mistake of her pitching that dig instead of that Jace, because she could have waited to Randy's end step and then snapped and then digged with exactly that mana and not have to worry about not leaving the Flusterstorms up.
Mm-hmm.
Then she would have been able to pull ahead pretty nicely. I mean, not that she isn't already ahead, but I mean, I'd give her a little bit more of a buffer or cushion.
Yeah, the dig was definitely the better card over the Jace, but it is, turning whatever 99% and change into a different 99% and change in all likelihood.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the better your hand becomes, the worse Jace is, where you don't even necessarily need the Brainstorm, plus you never want to tap the 4 mana.
So Randy does actually have a meaningful choice here. He has to decide if this resolves, is he going to go bargain? Is he going to go will?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to matter which one he chooses, but it is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, bargain does get around Flusterstorm and will compel her to use the force.
Right.
And if
if she could somehow get him to F6 through his turn, she could emblem deck and steal it somehow.
Well, this is awkward for her. He can almost pay for will. He can pay for will. If she doesn't find force, he can resolve Yawgmoth's will here.
No, he can't. I mean, she's got Snapcaster.
It's not that he can do anything with the Yawgmoth's will.
Right.
But,
well, he can't resolve it either. I mean, there's Snapcaster Mage. She can just snap a Flusterstorm and leave the Flusterstorm in hand.
Yeah.
No, I mean, given enough time, this Yawgmoth's will could build up to the point that, it's actually doing something, but it's just not going to have it.
Yeah, I mean, that fetch land in hand meant that he could have fetched and then replayed a land, assuming he didn't have a land drop last turn, and then post will, Rit, Duress, Defense Grid, all that nonsense. And Randy's deck, which is probably 9 Mox and finally draws 1.
Right on schedule.
Yeah, this is going to be awkward for him. If he played the Mox, he would have been able to pay for one of them, but...
What do you mean? The Mox is just another spell.
Yeah, it's a spell, yeah. I mean the turn before, but... He knew he was going to do that, but I guess he didn't know he was going to strip mine. Oh, he just drew the Pearl, right? So he's going to go to...
Yeah, I mean, it still wouldn't do anything. Even if the Mox was in play, the Snapcaster is going to be spell number 3, so the Strip Mine would still keep him off casting anything.
He might have outs, though, now, right? I mean... So
yeah, that's what I was saying. He just got to the point where...
She's going to attack him. They're still in the midst of blustering.
What did she target with Snapcaster Mage? I thought she was going to snap back Flusterstorm. Is there an Ancestral in her yard?
I think she did. I think she just made a mistake. It looks like... I don't know. I can't tell. The cursor seems to be on. Yeah, it just might have been a mistake.
I think.
Oh, she's targeted misstep.
Well, maybe she misclicked.
Yeah, it's probably a misclick.
Yeah, I was going to say, he doesn't realistically have outs against Flusterstorm still being in hand.
Right.
I mean, he could given time, but I mean, he's on a 4-turn clock with Snapcaster Mages, and each hit with Snapcaster Mage just makes each bargain or anything else his deck wants to do that much weaker.
Well, he's going to 11 now, and then she's time walking, and then he's going to 7. But, oh, there's the Mentor. So this gives him 1 turn to draw like Time Twister.
Yep.
It's hard. I'm hard pressed to think of something better than Time Twister here.
It'd be tough. Well, Ancestral Recall could have been a great start if she didn't find that.
Here we go.
I guess Treasure Cruise would be nice. I don't think he plays it though.
He has to tendrils, right? No, he doesn't have to.
Do it next turn. I mean, in all likelihood.
Oh God. All right, that's game.
It was already game, but
I know.
It's more game. So Randy, he did say when he was playing his Spicy Brew, he's like, I just really hope I don't know 3.
Oh, poor Randy. But I do give him like massive kudos for playing a spicy deck. So now he'll have.
He ran bad. I think this is a good deck. I mean, I would have liked to see it get to do its thing a little bit more often. This has been pretty unfortunate. I mean, he did get to go off against you and I once.
Yeah,
each.
No, he did.
Unfortunately, not 2 times in the same match for him, but this one just didn't work out at all. His opening hands were so bad, and he just never drew out of it.
Yeah, I probably made a mistake playing turn 1 Stony Silence instead of Library, but I was just afraid of him comboing out, and then I was totally behind in that first game. But
yeah, I thought that was interesting just because I think it's the exact play I would have made, but I would have loved to see how the game would have played out if you went turn 1 Library, turn 2 Stony.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure you win that game. Like, if you just had a blue card in your hand, you would have won.
Yeah.
Of course, well, who knows?
All right. Well, let's look at the standings real quick before the final match. Our producer has told us to do that in between rounds. We haven't. So here we go. The standings. This is the first week standings. Reed Duke took the 3-0 crown.
That includes our 2 players who just finished up. We've got Rachel and Randy sitting in their spots.
Right. So we've got 1 3-0 so far, a pair of 2-1s, 1-1-2, and a pair of 0-3s. And Rachel and I are gonna fight right now. Not Rachel and I.
I'll fight you.
Yeah.
I'll take
Eric
on
and I. Right. All right. Good luck.
You too, man.